At Computex this year, this is what I had to say about the Phanteks NV5.
There's a lot of cases at the show that I've said could possibly be the best, but I think the NV5 might actually be the best.
We're in the same shirt. What a coincidence. Are the things that I said about the NV5 at the Phanteks Suite at Computex in Taipei true? Well, to find out, we need to rewind. We need to go back in time and rip this thing apart and see what makes the Phanteks NV5 tick. Let's do a case review thing. Let's start off with panel removal. I would suggest removing the top panel first. There's two captive thumb screws that hold the top panel in place. You loosen them and then you pull the panel towards you and then you can lift the panel away. Same deal with the side panel, two captive thumb screws, one at the top, one at the bottom, and then you want to slide the panel towards you. The rear panel, same deal, two captive thumb screws, slide the panel, lift it away, and away we go. One thing to note, the front tempered glass panel is removable, but I'd recommend leaving it installed for structural rigidity. If you really need to remove this panel, you can to get access to certain things. There's a removable side panel that hides all of the cables on this side, but it doubles as hard disk and SSD storage. So if you wanted to install hard disks or SSDs, this whole panel is removable, and on the panel itself, you can do 3 3.5 inch drives or 4 2.5 inch SSDs. For power supply support, the NV5 supports up to a maximum of a 230mm power supply. It does have a special little trick up its sleeve though. At the end of the PSU shroud, you'll notice there's a single thumb screw. If we loosen this screw, we can then remove this panel here to reveal an opening for the power supply. The point of this opening is that if you forget to plug in any power cables or anything into your power supply, you can remove that panel and plug them in without removing the whole power supply. The corner of this panel allows for cable pass-through. Look at this. It's a bit of rubber. How clever is that? So you can still hide your cables and run them in the corner, especially for things like your front I/O connectors for turning your PC on and the front panel lights. How good's that? What's different about the NV5 is the power supply is also on an angle and it just follows the line of the bottom of the case. While we're talking about cables, you can see this cable raceway along the back edge of the motherboard tray. There's also this cable raceway here with pre-installed Velcro tie downs to run your EPS power cables up and through this cable pass-through at the top. You can also use this to manage any cables, but the cutouts down the bottom here are quite large. These cutouts along the top edge here for EPS power cables and other cables are more than adequately sized. There's also little cable clips along the edge as well. There are these right-angled cable grommets along the edge of the motherboard tray here as well. On the top of the case, we can do 3 120mm fans, or a 360mm liquid cooler, or a 360mm radiator if you're custom liquid cooling. On the side, you can do up to 3 120mm fans or a 360mm liquid cooler or 360mm radiator if you're custom liquid cooling. On the bottom of the NV5, there's also a space for another 120mm fan. This bracket is easily removable. There's a single screw and then you remove that screw and you can lift this away to mount a fan. If you're custom liquid cooling, you could probably also use this to mount your pump res combo down here as well. And finally, on the rear of the case, there's a single 120mm fan mount back there as well. You can do ITX all the way up to EATX, but keep in mind that the vertical GPU bracket would need to be removed and the maximum width of the board is 280mm, but EATX can be done in the NV5, which leads us into the next thing, GPU support. The maximum GPU clearance is huge in this case, 444mm if you wanted to go that large. As well as that, it's 170mm wide, so if you're worried about bending your 12-volt high-powered cable, you shouldn't have any issues with the NV5. The rear I/O covers can all be removed. You can use a vertical GPU bracket to vertically mount the GPU if you like. One thing I mentioned when we checked out this case at Computex was the GPU support bracket. This one's got a lot of adjustability and can be used in a couple of ways. So first of all, the GPU bracket is adjustable and it's got 2 screws that allow you to change the height of the bracket. If you wanted to make it slightly higher, you can remove one of the screws here to make it go even higher, but I think they've nailed it with the amount of height adjustability there is with this. Anyway, not only that, you can change the width of this bracket as well. If you've got a wider GPU, you can loosen the screw underneath, you can pull the bracket out and then adjust it that way. Not only that, it gives you the option to lower the bracket all of the way, because if you're using a vertical GPU bracket, you can use this GPU support bracket to support your GPU as well. So if you're wanting to air cool in the NV5, you've got a maximum cooler height of 180 millimeters. For front panel connectivity, we've got a combined connector for your lights and your switches to let you know your system's on and to turn your system on. A USB Type-C front panel cable. There's also the front panel audio cable, as well as a USB 3.2 Type-A connector for that front panel as well. For front panel connectivity, we've got a reset button, a power button, 2 RGB buttons to control the internal RGB controller. We'll come back to that in a sec. A USB Type-C port and 2 USB Type-A ports, as well as a combined headphone and microphone jack. There's a single dust filter that runs the whole length of the bottom of the NV5 as well. The NV5 has an integrated RGB controller. It's got a few ways to connect things, but first of all, you need to use a single SATA power connector to power the controller itself. There's also a 3-pin 5-volt addressable RGB cable that can plug into your motherboard, so you can have full motherboard control of all the lighting. It is nice to have an integrated RGB controller, especially because Phanteks doesn't really do software. There is a single integrated RGB strip along the edge of the PSU shroud. This will just give you a bit of an idea as to what the integrated RGB controller can do. It's got quite a lot of effects. I don't think the camera's picking it up as well as it looks, because this isn't the B-roll camera, this is one I usually use for talking. That's everything I think you need to know about the Phanteks NV5. Let's do our usual thing. Let's test the thermals, let's do a build. Let's jump right in. Is this thing on? Okay. You might be wondering why I haven't installed a power supply yet in this part of the build. Well, I was supposed to have the new Phanteks Revolt power supply, and I got custom made cable mod cables that were going to be amazing for this build, and I'd been planning this build for a very long time, but huge shipping delays. They've been stuck in shipping for about 2 weeks, so I'm going to have to go plan B. I know it's not exactly what I had planned, and I'm a little bit bummed about it, but let's crack on. I've got a cool alternative. let's take a look at the thermals of the Phanteks NV5. What you're seeing on your screen right now is the thermals are very, very good. The CPU temperatures are really good. The GPU temperatures are really good. Remember, the studio here is climate controlled. It's 18 degrees in here, so your mileage may vary, but from our testing, yeah, the thermals are very, very good. The fans that I use are the Phanteks D30 fans. However, the ones on the side and the bottom are reverse pitch fan blades, which means that they're literally backwards. And instead of them being exhaust, as they would typically be with fans facing that way, they're intake. And this is the optimal airflow pattern for the NV5. As far as the hardware used in this NV5 build, I'll put a PC part picker list down below, but we use little cards throughout the video to show what all of that stuff is. And as I interjected a little bit earlier in the video, the power supply that I was supposed to use and the cables that I ordered for this just didn't show up on time. The cables are getting delivered today and the video is supposed to go out today, but it's at the end of the day, so the likelihood of the power supply also showing up is just not gonna happen. I guess we're just gonna have to do another build with all the custom stuff that I got for this case. Okay, what do I think about the Phanteks NV5? Well, it's been a long time since I've been this pleased with the execution of a case. There's so many really nice bits of attention to detail. The little cable pass-through on the top of the PSU shroud that's removable as well is brilliant. You can hide almost every single cable in this case, and that is something I can definitely get behind. The build quality is fantastic. And when I get to the price, you're gonna be like, how is it so cheap? But we'll just keep going. That included GPU support bracket is brilliant. It works an absolute treat, and it has more adjustability than I showed in the video as well. Not only that, all the cable pass-throughs for cable management and for EPS power cables, sometimes that can be a problem with some cases, no problems here. Mounting the liquid cooler at the top, easy. Had no problems with any cable clearance, nothing. It's hard to believe that I honestly don't have anything negative to say about this case, because Phanteks absolutely nailed it with the NV5, but it doesn't stop there. There's still more accessories coming for this case that I don't have. They've got RGB strips that go around the outside of the glass. They've got a screen coming that sits on the PSU shroud. So I can tell now that the NV5 is going to be a very, very popular case. And on top of that, if you get that Phanteks power supply and the cables from Cable Mod, they cut it to a custom length for the power supply and this case, which is just another really cool bit of attention to detail, something I was not expecting, but very, very cool. Phanteks told me about this at Computex, and I'm like, people might get a little bit pissed off if they have to buy cables separately, but I think they're doing it as a bundle as well. So yeah, that's very interesting. It's like 2 hours before the video is supposed to go live and the cable showed up. It's like after 9 p.m. And I'll show you what the cables look like really quickly. Got these awesome custom made like sets. So I had 2 builds in mind that I really wanted to do. Maybe that one will show up better, but I did these really cool sets for this build, and I'm just bummed that I couldn't use them and I had to go the cheaty way of using those Leon Lee cables, and this is what I actually had planned. So yeah, we'll have to do another one.
Oh, what a shame.
What a shame. As mentioned, the case has a lot of good attention to detail, a lot of little things other cases miss out on, and the one thing that makes this case super attractive is the price. Okay. Allow me to explain. At Computex, Phanteks said they were going to be charging $129 for the black version of this case. The Phanteks NV5 now costs $99 US. It's not often that we see an announced price be $30 less than what the actual price is. Insane. Now that said, the white version is $109. But that's $10 difference to have a white version of the case. I just don't understand how they could make this cheaper. The build quality is phenomenal. Like, I honestly don't get it. I don't know how it's this cheap. It doesn't make sense to me. This case is brilliant, and I think you guys are really gonna like it. And that's basically all I've got to say about the NV5. It's a good case. What more do you want me to say? All right, that's just about gonna do it. If you like the music you heard here, I make all the music. It's available by clicking that join button right down there, down below. Please get yourself subscribed. I'm your boy Nick with Gear Seekers. You peek, we seek. I honestly can't believe that this case is only 109 US dollars. Even the black one, which is cheaper, 99 US dollars, the quality is phenomenal. It's also got an included RGB controller as well. I don't know how Phanteks is gonna make any money on this because it's too cheap. It's, I can't remember the last time I said that, but it's too cheap for what you're getting. And that's a good thing for us. Maybe not so good for Phanteks. Seriously guys, there is not one thing that annoyed me about this case. Usually there's some things or something, there's nothing. Yeah. You guys are gonna like it, guaranteed.